This episode of the Citadel Cafe is brought to you by listeners like you. Visit patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe to find out how you can become a patron and help make this show possible. This is the Citadel Cafe, episode number 427 for Wednesday, December 22nd, 2021. My name is Joel Duggan, and the Citadel Cafe is where my friends and I hang out to talk about the geeky stuff that we are into. And every holiday season, we all get together, or I get as many of my friends together as I can, on the Citadel Cafe Holiday Roundtable. And I am happy to have a nearly full house tonight. Unfortunately, Lou Page had some last minute things come up, family, Christmas wrapping, all that kind of stuff. You can find him at Busy Zombie Lord and all the social media that matters. And of course, peppered throughout the year on the Citadel Cafe. But all the best, all the happy holidays to Lou, who unfortunately can't make it. Brock at Vola may be able to join us later. He is at the Cat Volver on social media. He also has a busy young family around the holidays, so may or may not be able to pop in later. We'll see what's happening with Brockett. But here tonight, Alastair McFly at iMcFly on social media. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Ryan Murphy from Zombies Ate My Podcast, podcasting partner of Lou Page, as well as the Gamers Inn and Dungeons and Diapers. Ryan Murphy, hello, sir.
Yes, I've stopped podcasting for on my other 3 shows to come here and podcast here, so it's a busy week of podcasts.
Look, I hear you, man.
I'll add a 8th day, I think. I'll get around to that.
I hear you. I've been doing the same thing because I want to take a week off between the holidays, so I'm recording extra stuff the last 10 days, and I feel like I've been podcasting on my ears when normally I just do 2 shows a week. But it's a busy time of year for us microphone people.
Indeed it is. It's like when you take a week off of work, you end up fitting that week in half of it before you go off on vacation and the other half when you get back. So do you really take a vacation? I don't know.
The meta vacation.
Yeah.
Also here and chuckling in the background is Steven. You can find him at Steven ESC and all the social media that matters. And of course, once a month here on the Citadel Cafe. Hello, sir.
Hello, how are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. I am halfway through the eggnog and rum that I poured before the show because our pre-show chat went a little bit long. Nice, so we'll see if I can manage to squeak in a refill, but my headphones might not reach that far during the show.
I don't have a beverage of adult variety, but I have a tea and eggnog for my Christmas beverage.
Hey, well, look, there's eggnog in it. That at least counts for something, right? And pulling up the rear, we have the once-a-year appearance of James the Civilian. He is like the wind. He is every fucking where, but you can't find him. So hello, James. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me back. I heard the words Holiday Roundtable, and suddenly I materialize on the TCC.
It's like the ghost of Christmas past. You just kind of show up.
I'm just here, and no one's complaining yet, so I'm just going to keep sitting here and talking.
I think that we missed an opportunity to bring you on at some point during the year for some Star Trek talk. Alastair has been kind enough to fill those shoes, but I think besides the Holiday Roundtable, James, the last time you were on was probably one of the Star Trek conversations.
Yes, I was here for the Holiday Roundtable last year, and then I think not long before that, I was here for an episode about Star Trek Discovery, seasons 1 and 2. And season 3, sorry. Season 3 had just started.
Yeah, because it starts in November, so you probably would have been around sometime in November of 2020? No, 2020. Wow.
That sounds right.
The last 2 years have just become one big giant blob of time. It's like the gelatinous cube from D&D. Like it's all just kind of in there floating around. And it's just like, have you guys seen those memes where it's like, 1970, that was 30 years ago. Nope, that was 50 years ago.
Like I have, yes.
In my brain, I always think that it's 30 years ago because those are the maths that you did when you were in school. And I always have that guilty, I totally feel like, I know it's not, but it feels that way to me sometimes.
For me, especially with Back to the Future, because the whole thing was that they go back 30 years and then they go forward 30 years because it's a nice round number. And we're way beyond that now. Way.
Yeah.
Well, it's sure. That happens in a lot of stuff I watch, like Akira was 2019 or 2020. Ghost in the Shell is 2020 something as well. So a lot of the stuff that I grew up watching as a teenager, now we're passing those years. It's like, oh, that's not how that anime predicted this would be.
Nice. Well, I have a few holiday questions to kind of kick things off tonight. We also have an email from a listener from LBV, and later on we'll be discussing the finale of Hawkeye on Disney Plus for everybody tuning in and wondering where the show is going. But if you're new to the Holiday Roundtable, it's a little bit more of a casual show. We kind of lean back and kind of let the conversation take us wherever. So the notes on the website will not be quite as tight as usual, but we'll try to have as many links as we can. I do have a few holiday themed questions I thought I'd just kind of kick things off with. And I'll just let folks pick and choose what they want to answer. But the three that I was posing are: what is the nerdy thing that you're looking forward to doing over the holidays? What is the nerdiest gift on your wish list? Or what nerdy entertainment are you looking forward to consuming over the holidays? Ryan, let's start with you, as I see you've got a few things listed here.
So here's the thing. I have 3 kids at home, and video games. I love video games, and when it comes to Christmas and the Christmas wish list, it's like, okay, what do I put on here? Well, of course I'm gonna put video games. I still haven't gotten around to like figuring out how to not put video games on the Christmas list, knowing that I'll get them, I'll get them out of the shrink wrap, install them, and maybe play like 15 minutes or so because I don't have a lot of time to spend on a bunch of video games, although I try. So I did that again where I put video games on the Christmas list. So I'm sure I'm gonna get a bunch of video games that I'll look at, and they don't have manuals anymore, so it's not like you can say at least you looked at the manual. But I guess I could watch the install bar, so I'll do that at least. But I am looking forward to playing some video games over the holidays. I've got a good backlog and forward log. Is that a thing? That's not a thing, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm looking forward to playing some new video games. That's kind of what I'm looking forward to from a nerdy perspective. And I do have a couple games that I've put on the list that I'll be able to play with the kids as well. So I'm looking forward to that too.
What are your top like 2 or 3 games for you, and what's the top game for the kids that you're looking for?
So like for the kids, I picked up Sackboy something adventure. I can't remember the full name, but it's like, so they had the Little Big Planet games, and then they kind of spun them out. They spun them out into one game that's you play as Sackboy, and it's like a more of like a platform adventure. And I'm playing it on the PlayStation 5, and I've been looking forward to playing it with the kids. And they actually added a new Paw Patrol game to Game Pass, which I'm excited about because I don't have to buy the Paw Patrol game. I can just play it on Game Pass. So I don't recommend it to probably anybody else unless you do have kids that like Paw Patrol. But I'll probably end up playing that one. It's Mighty Pups, in case anyone's curious. I don't know if you are, but that's for the kids. And then like for myself, I am looking at Returnal on the PlayStation 5. I missed it when it came out. I want to get back to that one. But I think like the nerdiest thing on my wish list is 13 Sentinels. I can't say it. I just call it 13 Sentinels, but it's got a subtitle. And it's a Japanese game that a lot of people in the Gamers in Discord have been talking about. And there's talk of doing like a game club of some kind with the Discord. So I know that's on my list. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get it. It was on sale by a good chunk, so it was a good get. And yeah, I'll probably be playing that in 2022. I don't know what the story's about. I think it's about like these kids that travel through time maybe and fight giant robots, or they're in giant robots and they fight giant monsters, and there's something going on there. So I don't know what's going on in the game, but that's the confusing uh introduction that at least I've been able to gather from the what little I've read. But it is probably the nerdiest thing on my list. But I think it's a game that came out earlier this year, and it's on PlayStation, and I think that's it. I think it's exclusive to PlayStation. I think it's supposed to be coming out to Switch next year, actually. I think that just got announced. So that is probably the nerdiest thing on my list. I am looking forward to jumping into it. I always like trying new things, even if it's not like my typical genre of video games. I'm always keen to jump in and try something new. That at least once. Like I played Minecraft once, and I tried it, and I enjoyed it. I don't know if my doghouse is still there or my underground escape tunnel. Probably not. I hope you built it. I hope you tore it down. It's like this is no longer here anymore.
I think it's now a fountain. Alastair, you might be able to confirm. I believe it was you and Anna Marie that built the fountain on the Citadel where Ryan's doghouse was. Although I think underneath has been left untouched. So it's a fountain with a mysterious basement. I think.
Ooh. That's never good for the plumbing.
Some of the basement's now filled with redstone. Anna Marie was the one who built it and designed it, and I just helped with the redstone to do the dispensing.
Nice. We try not to take stuff down if we don't have to on the server, just because it's nice to have that kind of perpetual like move forward with the world. I'm looking at 13 Sentinels now, and it looks like a JRPG would be my guess of the first impression.
It is. Yeah, it's a JRPG. I think it's more of like it's got like a strategy layer to it where it's turn-based combat, but it's also part visual novel, so there's a lot of storytelling going on.
It looks very pretty.
Yes. Yeah, it's by the studio behind it's Vanillaware, and they're known very well for their like stylized high concept artwork and stuff, and it is part visual novel, part strategy game. I guess it came out a couple years ago in Japan and just recently released here, but I don't know a whole lot about it. I just know that we have some anime fans, JRPG fans in the Discord, and they've slowly kind of been suggesting games, and I think this one will be the next one. Right now I'm working on Tales of Arise. I've been working on that since September. Which is a more traditional JRPG that came out earlier this year. The Tales franchise has been around for decades. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. And honestly, like I'm just looking forward to after a busy day, just sitting down and relaxing and watching some TV or playing some video games. But we are very much looking forward to Christmas with the kids. I think the kids are very excited. I don't know if they gather that there's like, not to date this recording, but like only a few more days until Christmas. And I think they haven't quite started to understand that. But I have a feeling tomorrow or the next day they're gonna grasp that Christmas is literally around the corner. So they're very much looking forward to it.
Remind me if you don't mind sharing, what's the age range? Like your oldest is 6 and your youngest is 3?
Yeah, so my oldest will be 6 in January, and then middle child is 4, and then our youngest is will be 2 in March.
Oh, okay, so younger than I thought.
Yeah, a little bit younger, but like Caden, who's our oldest, is he's all on board. He understands. He understands Christmas. And Abby does as well, the middle child, but Isabel, who's only 2, just she knows Santa. She won't go near Santa. All of my kids distrusted Santa, like just would not go near him until they hit like 3. I don't know if it's like a thing where they needed to get old enough to be able to understand that they could fight back against like an old man who sits in a chair. So I don't know if that's the case. Makes sense. It checks out in my mind. Like a 2-year-old's like, no, I can't take him. I got to stay close to mom and dad. But yeah, Isabel, she's got the ho 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 down, Santa and reindeer and all that, but she's always excited. Little kids are always excited, so they're all looking forward to it. I can't, we do the elf thing. I don't know if anybody else here does the elf thing for if they have kids, but
the elf on the shelf.
I am so glad my kids are of an age where we missed that entire era. I would not be the worst parent ever. Like
I didn't know about it until I came to Canada and it started appearing on the internet and stuff. It's not really a British thing, and I'm still a little vague as to what it is.
It's relatively new, really. I mean,
Is it?
It is.
Oh, yeah.
It's relatively
less than
new.
a decade, isn't it?
Oh, less than 5 years, I would say.
Yeah, 5 to 10 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I just assumed it was a North American thing that everybody grew up with.
No.
It's
No.
brand new, all things considered.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
My in-laws are trying to push the elf on the shelf on us, and they bought us like it comes in like a book with like a really nice elf as well. I think it's like a set you can get. So they bought us this really nice set, and they're trying to push the elf on the shelf on us, and I'm trying to resist as much as I can.
You gotta have fun with it. So this year we added a new elf. Our first elf was Nook, and our second elf is McClunky. And I think McClunky had put Nook in the French press the other day, so we had to separate them. And sometimes you forget though, and it's like the kids will come downstairs and like, oh, Nook and McClunky didn't move. And when they don't move, it means like they weren't good and they
were bad,
lost their man. Yeah, well, not like we're not really using it as a. I mean, you don't sit there and I definitely say like, well, Nook and McClunky are listening, so if you're gonna like do that, they're gonna tell Santa, and I guess that means they lose their magic. They weren't listening or whatever. But yeah, in this case, it was just I had forgot. It was my turn to move them, and I hadn't. So like I think today I forgot to. So McClunky came back with them from the grandparents, and he was in a bag, and Ashley's like, you gotta hide him, and like, and I just opened the freezer and put him in the freezer on the ice cream. It's like, oh, McClunky's eating ice cream, that little rascal. I just forgot. The only place I could put him without the kids seeing me move him. So
you can't find McClunky for 3 days. The kids are stressing out. You open up the freezer to get some ice cream for your apple pie. You're like, oh, there he is.
Yeah, there's
what
McClunky.
An elf-sicle rascal, that guy.
Put him on ice like the mob.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't go
elf
too
I can relate
well
to.
with it. Yeah. It's it is fun, but I mean, like, I hope that's it. Just 2 elves. Everyone, people know their limits on kids and elves. My limit on kids is 3. My limit on elves is 2. So that's my bar. We're good with that. We're comfortable.
I don't want to share the story out of turn. I'll have to ask my sister to refresh my memory, but I believe one of her friends did the elf on the shelf thing, and the rule was that you're not supposed to touch the elf, so the kids are not supposed to play with the elf. You can only touch him on Christmas Eve, and otherwise he loses his magic. Well, I feel like one of her friend's kids like accidentally touched and knocked over something, and it ended up like moving the elf, and kid had a meltdown. And so for all of the the rules and the fun that were in this thing, like because of this one instant, this poor kid was just beside themselves because of this accident. And you have to try and reassure, like, well, remember, how do you reassure a kid saying like, okay, so all the things that I've told you over the last 15 days have been lies. So this really doesn't matter as much as you think it does. But yeah, I'm glad that I don't have to deal with the elf on the shelf. My sister has fun with it. She does it for my niece, and I've seen the elf. I don't know the elf's name, but drawing faces on eggs in the fridge. My favorite stuff are the more whimsical things. Like I think she made snow angels and flour on the kitchen counter or something like that. I always like the memes on the internet where it's like, Grogu with the elf halfway down his throat, or dads that get a hold of the elf, and it's like, he gets into the milk and then like barfs up M&Ms, and so he's like face down on the carpet with like M&Ms everywhere the next day. Like it looks like a hungover elf. Like that kind of stuff I find very funny, but I don't know whether they do it all month long or what.
My favorite Star Trek version of the meme is Morn riding a Gorn.
Oh yeah. Morn on a Gorn. Yeah. Nice.
So a wolf on a wolf.
Yeah. So Stephen, what are you looking forward to coming up over the holidays from the nerdy side of things?
Most of the nerdy stuff in my future life has to do with TV shows. I was hoping to pick up a video capture card before the holidays to do a bit of streaming of Switch to Twitch, but we had to buy a new washer, which kind of laughed at those plans, and so that's going to be a 2002 purchase. So we just finished watching season 2 of The Witcher over lunch and Hawkeye over dinner, and over the next little while we're going to be watching the next season of Lock and Key, Lost in Space, and looking forward to the first episode of Book of Boba Fett on December 29th.
That's right. Yeah, that launches just a couple days before the new year. I'm looking forward to that too. I've seen a couple of trailers roll by on YouTube that I've avoided. I've decided that I'm just going to go in blind and kind of like hopefully enjoy it for what it is, and let the show kind of speak for itself. The trailers aren't long either. They look like they're only a minute, which to me means it's just going to spoil a bunch of visual stuff that I'd rather see firsthand anyway. So I'm looking forward to that. I have also watched The Witcher season 2. So not to say that I was going to watch it over the holidays. I ended up watching it over the weekend. Well, weekend plus a few days. How did you? You said you just finished that, or you wanted to start it?
No, we just finished the last episode over lunch. So it's basically we do the kind of the parental check on IMDb to find out when there's the inappropriate stuff for kids their age, and
Hmm.
just and kind of visually or mentally bookmark when those scenes are, and so when the scene pops up, I go, okay, guys, look away. And then we just kind of skip ahead 15, 20 seconds or whatever and go, cool. But otherwise, the boys have been watching, Lord of the Rings, Stranger Things, and other things. So the visuals and the fantasy side of it, they're sort of used to that. There were a couple things that were a little bit more violently surprising than I remember from season one. But overall, we as a family, the boys are old enough that we loved it. We practically devoured it. The only reason why we didn't finish it sooner is because my older guy goes, no, just because then it'll be over too soon. Let's just slow down. One episode a day, because we did, I think there were 2 different days that we did 2 episodes, and then he just put the brakes on it. He goes, no, let's just spread it out a bit.
It is tough with I find the better series, the better seasons are often between 8 and 10. And it's tough when you're used to like, whatever, I can do 2 or 3 in a day. There's usually 12 to 15 of these. And then after that first day where you've watched 3 and you look ahead and you're like, oh crap, there's only 8. I'm half done. What?
Yeah, exactly.
I need to pace myself. I know that feeling because one of the worst things about we'll call it my day to day. And I know it sounds like a small violin in the woods, but I dislike having to decide what to watch over dinner. And I really enjoy when I'm in the middle of something, whether it's like something that I've completely missed and there's like 3 seasons of it. I was like, sweet, I don't have to worry about it. I'm just going to play the next episode. Or things like, The Witcher, which is good, but short. And then it's like, okay, well, I'm going to watch one over dinner. Do I want to watch another one after dinner? Because if I do that, then that's like the rest of the week. I don't know what I'm going to be watching. And it sounds silly, but like I never seem to sit down ahead of time. Maybe while something's boiling or cooking, if I've got 15 minutes, I might think like, okay, I need to sit down and decide what I'm going to watch. Because otherwise I'm sitting there surfing through Netflix for the first 20 minutes of my meal. It's half gone before I even hit play on something. And then I haven't really watched anything. I've only watched like the, act 1 of an hour-long show. So I find that I've been more savoring things. And I know, Alastair, this is something that you enjoy about some of the series that are coming out or have been coming out. With Hawkeye, I liked that it was week to week. I liked that I couldn't watch, another one right away. I'm kind of surprised that they don't do that with The Witcher. That's the kind of series that they totally could put out 1 episode a week over the course of 8 weeks. Start November 1st, release it all the way through till December, 30th or whatever, and just dominate, Netflix subscriptions for 2 months. But instead they just kind of put it all out at once, which I guess in a way it sort of plays like a long movie. But, and I don't want to get into spoilers because it only just came out like a week ago. But it's, I don't know, Netflix, from what I can tell, unless it's like a joint project, they don't tend to do week to week. They usually do like a full release.
Mm-hmm. And they don't put any last time on at the beginning. So there's no catch-ups and stuff. So when I have gone and tried to pace myself, there's just times when it's like, I can't even remember what happened. When Lost in Space final season came out, I couldn't remember what happened last season. I had to go and rewatch the last episode of season 2. And because there was nothing, there wasn't even a last season on it. It was just straight into it.
So I noticed that about The Witcher. They have them. They're just not part of the episode. They're a separate playlist altogether. So you can go and watch like the bestiary of you can watch the bestiary of The Witcher. You can watch, which has got 2 parts, so it talks about all the monsters. You can watch a season 1 recap, which is a whole like series of events that happen, which would have been helpful had I seen it, because again, it wasn't part of the Witcher season 2 playlist. So like I didn't see it. And then there's like the making of, there's a behind the scenes interview with Henry Cavill. I don't know if that's the same one from the first season or not. I didn't really look at it that closely. I saw them all today. I finished it yesterday. So I'm just like, well, the season 1 recap would have been helpful before I started, the season 2. But and it's a good that they did that for that show in particular, because season 1, as far as the timeline goes, was all over hell and high water. And I could have used a refresher. I had planned on watching season 1 again, actually, before season 2, but I just didn't get to it. I was watching something else. So I guess, Alastair, in terms of the nerdy stuff that you're looking forward to over the holidays, what are your plans?
There's a board game that I bought ages ago. I pre-ordered it and it got delayed immensely. and it was a faff to sort of get. And by the time I got it, I ended up just busy because we were suddenly back in work and things. So I'm finally looking forward to actually sitting down and playing Aliens: Another Glorious Day in the Core from Gale Force 9. It's a really cool cooperative survival board game with also these little figures. They're ones that you're supposed to assemble, but my set actually came with them all pre-assembled, which is great because I'm not really good on the model making side of things. But yeah, it plays out like the second Aliens film, really, and you just going around with your Marines and trying to avoid aliens, and so that's something I'm just looking forward at trying out, and also going back to playing Mafia 2. Remember last time I was on, we were talking about my PlayStation 3?
Yes.
Yeah, Mafia 2 was one of the games that I always used to play on my Mac, but it's an old 32-bit game, which isn't supported under 64-bit stuff anymore. So being able to finally play that again is going to be good. It opens in a very wintry setting, so it's for several years, for some reason, it just ended up becoming tradition.
I haven't played a board game in a really long time. Now, COVID aside, it was still a long time before that as well. I think the last one I bought was Unstoppable Unicorns, which is just like a card tabletop game. That's it.
I remember when you got that, yeah.
Yeah. I bought it with the intention of playing it with people. And then, true to form, I think when I have people over around the holidays pre-COVID, it would be the intention of maybe getting a board game going, but it's a maritime party. Everybody ends up standing around in the kitchen near the food and talking. Like that's just, which is fine.
On the side.
Yeah, which is fine. I don't mind that at all. That's kind of how I roll with parties. I like that about the Maritimes, but and I'm sure it's the same elsewhere too. But I just, unless it's an established tradition of like, everybody gets together for that annual game of, insert whatever, tabletop you're into. I find it's hard to kind of get one going. Or if you don't have a large enough party, it's like either the party is just big enough to play the game and then everybody can play. Or if the party isn't big enough, then it ends up dividing the party in half. So then you've got like 4 people or 5 people playing a game and like 2 or 3 people just kind of like hanging out and watching, which is odd.
As sad as it sounds, that's one of the reasons why I've ended up investing money into games that offer solo play.
Oh, right.
So that at least I can, because there's a few games that I've got that, 2 to 4 players or whatever that I've never even had a chance to play. And so now it's just I'm just going to get ones where, worst comes to worst, especially in a pandemic. I can just at least play solo.
So with regards to maybe like a Christmas wish list, do you have any additions coming to the home arcade or any other video games that you're looking to get at?
Oh, I wish. To be honest, I'm actually starting to look at getting a house.
Wow.
So I'm starting to enter that. I'm going to be speaking to a mortgage broker sort of early in the new year. So all the kind of plans of getting new additions to the home arcade are kind of getting put on the back burner now,
right?
With the hopes of getting a better dedicated place for them. And believe you me, I'm going to make sure there is a room for arcade so that I can expand. so not this year, but it will happen.
Yeah. I would expect nothing less.
You don't want to put the cart before the horse, right? Like,
yeah, that's it. Running out of room a bit now, so it'll be good to have just that dedicated space. But yeah, so financially, I think that's where a lot of stuff's going to start aiming towards now, really. But it's exciting stuff.
James, what are you looking forward to doing most over the holidays?
Well, much like Ryan, I think I have my eye on a video game or two that I'm trying to finish. In particular, I'm trying to finish Metroid Dread on Nintendo Switch. I picked that up in October, just after it came out. But much like Ryan, young family plus work equals not a lot of time to play video games. So that kind of went down to one night a week. I would carve out some time, go play Metroid Dread, and then things just got so busy at work and the holidays that I've had to put it down. So trying to get back to finishing Metroid Dread, that'd be really nice. And, also trying to find some more time to draw and do my own personal art projects. In terms of nerdiest thing on my wish list, I dropped a not so subtle hint to my wife that Kohl's, the bookstore in the malls here, they have the first collected volume of the Ghost in the Shell manga. I think, fingers crossed, I think my wife might have picked up on the hint. There's a book under the tree with my name on it that is wrapped up, that is very similar in size and weight and dimensions. So fingers crossed that worked out. And in terms of entertainment to consume, for me, The Expanse, the final season of The Expanse just came out, or I should say, they are releasing episodes once a week on Amazon Prime. They're 2 episodes in, and going back to our conversation about short seasons, there's only 6 episodes this season. They've already released 2, so we're already a third of the way through the season, the final season, no less. So I'm definitely looking forward to watching The Expanse and trying to finish up some series that I started. I started Star Wars Visions, which I know you talked about on a previous episode, and I really enjoyed that. But again, I haven't finished it. Need to get back to it. So yeah, I'm just trying to tie up some loose ends more than anything over the holidays.
I confess that I started and did not finish Star Wars Visions either. Whenever they get to like the musical ones or the weird ones, I always ended up bailing. Or like where you would watch 2 or 3 if they were really good, I would watch one of those and be like, okay, well, I'm done with these for now. And just, you kind of subconsciously forget that they're all going to be different. So just because you didn't like this one doesn't mean you're not going to like the next one. Steven, I know you guys were watching those. Did you finish all of those?
Watching which ones? These
Star Wars
Star Trek?
Visions?
Oh no, we didn't.
Okay, it must have been, who was it that I was talking to? Maybe it was Ryan. Was it you that I was talking to about the Star Wars Visions?
You know what? I watched about half of them, and
Yeah.
then I didn't get back to it, and I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I think it just it. We talked earlier about like shows dropping week to week, and I know I talked to some friends of mine who have the time to binge, and I don't anymore. Like if they drop 8, like The Witcher 2, I've watched the first 10 minutes of the first episode, and I love The Witcher. The issue I have is that it's a me only show. Like Ashley, my wife,
Hmm.
I've never been able to. I've never tried it with her because it's kind of like it's that high fantasy stuff. Like I think that might not really her jam, but like Hawkeye, she's really enjoying. So we've been watching that together. But I really appreciate the week to week because it allows you to just kind of like I only have to carve out an hour, and I can do that. That I can do. But I do appreciate when you get to like a cliffhanger. You're like, oh, but if it was all there, we could just watch like the next 15 minutes of the next episode, understand what's going on, and then sleep better. I see both sides of it. I do, but I still prefer week to week. So going back to Visions, I think that was the issue is like, oh, it's all there. I can go back to it whenever I want. It's not something that can be spoiled. And I think that kind of worked against it. But I really appreciated like the idea of Star Wars Visions, like the fact that it is trying something new with a franchise that has kind of kept doing the same thing. As outside looking in, I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, so I could be completely wrong. But like my favorite Star Wars is when they do different things. Like I liked Rogue One. I
Mhm.
liked some of the the Titanfall dev Respawn's Star Wars game, um, that sort of stuff. So, but by no means am I like a huge Star Wars fan. So definitely don't have to take my word at all on this. I could be completely wrong on all these thoughts, but yeah. I forgot Book of Boba is coming out next week, and I don't know how I feel about that. Are people excited about that? Like, I know it's Boba Fett, right? So, but that's my only connection to it is that people are excited because it's Boba Fett.
I think they're excited because it's Boba Fett, and Boba Fett's showing in the season 2 of Mandalorian was strong. I'm not convinced, but I will be happy to say that I'm wrong, that I can watch a full season of Boba Fett. I think part of the allure of the character of Boba Fett overall is because people don't know much about him. It's that mystery. It's that like you can kind of write your own sort of like mythos to him. I know there's comics and stuff like that, but I have lost track of what's canon and what's not after Disney took over. And I just don't know that another Mandalorian show is what I'm looking for. And from what I can tell from the first trailer, I don't think it's necessarily going to be a bounty hunter show. I think it's going to be more of a gangster, Star Wars. I think it's probably like what we're getting out of the Mandalorian is like a Star Wars gunslinger, like traveling lone gunman deal. I'm wondering if with the Boba Fett, the Book of Boba Fett, if we're going to get more of a Western town. He sets up in Jabba's palace and takes over, and then it's just the whole thing is on Tatooine. or most of it. I'm not really sure.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna watch it because I mean, I trust the production value, and I love the Mandalorian, and I'm curious to see where it goes. It's also the Star Wars that we have right now, without new films and stuff coming out. So, I mean, I'm interested for sure. I don't know if I'm looking forward to it. I know, Steven, you probably are, because I know that you guys are a big Star Wars house. Now, before I forget, Steven, if you haven't heard about the Star Wars Visions, it is a series of animated shorts, all with a Star Wars theme, but they're all completely independent of one another story-wise, and they're completely independent as far as being animated by different studios around the globe. So like you'll have one like super anime samurai one, and then you'll have one goofy musical one, and then you'll have another one that deals with lightsabers, another one that deals with like no Jedi at all. It's all kind of like all over the map. So it's meant to be kind of consumed as like a standalone, just kind of like almost like What If in a way.
Right.
Just kind of like out there as like a fun example of what this imagination can do in this world, with that IP, and just kind of let artists kind of like do whatever they want.
It's starting to sound familiar. We may have chatted about it on one of the podcasts. We just never ended up watching it.
It sounded a
Before
little
we,
bit like the Animatrix in a way, from the way you're describing it.
You're right.
Yeah, it's that, I would say, probably very similar. I've watched like 2 or 3. And I hear you on not remembering kind of like what's what. I mean, having hosted 427 of these, like, I very often have to go to the website going like, did I talk about that before? What episode was that? I'm not even sure who I was talking to about that. I have to go look it up on the internet because it's been so long that I have absolutely no idea. In essence of time, we should probably move on to the listener email, which is going to tie us back to The Witcher, I think. This email comes from LBV. Hello, the Citadel Cafe. A late congratulations on 10 years. A quick question for you. Do you think some media for adults is getting maybe a little bit too raunchy? I've got this feeling that some adult media got the R rating, and because of that, they went too far in the direction of sexual content and or long graphic violence scenes. Do you think that some directors or creators thought the whole point of adult media was to be explicit? Or do you think that maybe I've just been unlucky and my recent watch history is too small of a sample in the vast ocean of content? Love the show, LBV. P.S. Did you know that Joel is a Finnish name? Here it's pronounced Joel, but written the same as yours. I did know that, and I don't remember where I picked that up. I feel like it might have been from just general media, or the fact that so much of the fan base in Minecraft has like a Norse, kind of like a Sweden, Finland kind of like population, and I think that's come across in my Discord or in my Twitch chat at some point. But I did know that, and I've actually had people ask me when they're from either Finland or Sweden about my name and how to pronounce it, because they in their mind think Yol, but then they see mine and they're like, but how does he say it? And so it becomes a little conversation live in Twitch chat. I'll kick this off by saying that I agree in some cases. And I think that when it works in shows like The Witcher, specifically season 2, I found, and I won't get into any spoilers, that there are less nude scenes, and less nude scenes for the sake of nude scenes. It was not meant to make you feel uncomfortable. It wasn't gratuitous. And if I recall, I don't even think Henry Cavill takes his shirt off, which is, I think, probably to the dismay of many female fans. But I think that their reason for dialing back the highly, sexual scenes in The Witcher in season 2 suit the story. And I'm glad that they did it. On the flip side, it is very violent. And I want to say it's even more violent than the first season. The first season, there's a lot of like monsters and like, chopping the head off of a dragon, which is obviously like an imaginary CG thing, is all well and good. But in season 2, and again, I don't want to get into any too big of a spoiler thing here, but there are a lot of monsters. They are pretty grotesque, and there's a lot of encounters with humans where the humans don't make it. And it's not a matter of a human being batted off the side of a mountain, doing a Wilhelm scream, and that's the end of it. I'm talking about people being like ripped in half, or pieces of them being removed by teeth. And they don't hide anything. Nope. And it adds to the peril of the scene. And I think that to its strength, when someone that has been in the show dies, violently, and there is absolutely no coming back from it. It kind of cements the danger to the audience. And I feel like there's a couple things that maybe I didn't need to see, but at the same time, because you're dealing with beings and witchers that can be healed by magic, and they take elixirs, and like they can get stabbed through, and it would kill anyone except for the witchers, because, and I don't mean season 2, just in general, people get stabbed and then they live, and you're just like, but you had a sword that was 4 foot long driven through your torso and you're alive. And in this way, when the monsters take them out, they're done, because they're done. And so I get that clarity. Now, on the flip side, much to my regret, I've been watching season 3 of Titans on Netflix. And the only reason I continue to watch it is because every once in a while they have some character beats or some character takes, and I'm just like, okay, wow, that was pretty interesting. The acting is good for the most part for some of the main characters. Where they falter and where they get more lewd, more violent, and overly sexual when they don't need to, is when they can't write themselves out of a box, and they've just got these characters that are not needed for the story. They need to do something with them because they're quote unquote part of the team, like Starfire or Superboy. And while Superboy's got some cool moments, there's also some very violent scenes. And with Titans, it's not so much about the graphic violence, it's about the language. And it's about like how many F-bombs can they put into a superhero show. And basically they just feel like, oh, well, we're not on the CW, so let's just have them say fuck every other sentence. And it's just like, but that's not even how real people talk. And now you're trying to tell me that these superheroes are also being this vulgar. And it just speaks to the low bar of the writing for those characters. It doesn't, unfortunately, or I guess fortunately, speak for the writing for the whole show. It's not the best, but it's better than previous seasons, and it certainly has some interesting takes. And it does some things with the fight scenes that they don't do on the CW. I mean, Alastair, you might be able to speak to this, having gone through some of the more recent seasons, but for me, the fight scenes in the CW look like a lot of jumping and landing and the camera shaking and people going flying. Whereas on Titans, like, you can hear and feel some of the blows when Nightwing is fighting somebody, and he's not nice. Like, he's a Batman protege. Like, he's breaking people's knees backwards, and they don't show you that. They might give you a sound effect, but you're like, when people go down, they go down hard, and it's satisfying because they're nasty bad guys that are like kidnapping people, and Nightwing is beating the tar out of them, and it's fine. But it's the reverse of the sexual and the combat violence in the show. It's the verbal kind of R rating and the dialogue that they lean and they use as an excuse because of the R rating for it. And it doesn't do the show any service. They could do just fine without as many. I'm not saying don't swear. Adults use adult language, but it's just, to me, it's a little bit bland. So, I mean, Alastair, in terms of, some very PG content like the CW versus some of the more like raunchy stuff that you've seen, do you think that people are going a little bit too raunchy with media these days?
I think it depends a lot on the context of what the show is. I certainly know that back when Stargate first came out, that first aired on Showtime. The movie had some nudity, and Showtime were trying to be edgy and were trying to push nudity. So they made them put nudity in the pilot of the show, which the creators weren't really too happy about. And then they were able to kind of kibosh that for episode 2 onwards. And then later on, Brad Wright, who was one of the creators, went back and re-edited the pilot and re-released it as the final cut. And he stripped out all the nudity because it's like, it does not need to be here. And, and that's not one of those things where, nudity in shows is bad. But there are certainly some shows where it's more appropriate for it. Like, I think people would probably agree that Game of Thrones, it probably made sense to be there. But, and certainly when it comes to violence, I think that, again, some of them, just to kind of get the idea of the brutality of stuff, you kind of need to show more, but I think people are also a lot more accepting of it and a lot more understanding as to what's real and what isn't, for the most part. I think James Bond is also a very good example of this, where if you watch Sean Connery trying to fight, And then you watch Daniel Craig fighting. The fighting styles are very, very different just because of how violence has changed in visual media over the years.
Yeah, stunt fights and stuff have become a lot more visceral in terms of just like the speed at which they film them, the editing. You think about the Bourne films, like when he beats the guy up with a book. Like it's not violent in that there's not a lot of blood or people aren't losing limbs, but you still kind of like cringe in your chair going like, man, that sounded like it hurt. And it's a book. Like that kind of stuff. I think sound editing can do a lot too.
Yeah, I mean, to your point earlier, you don't have to see it, but if you hear a bone crunch, then that goes through you. I think that's almost worse than seeing it,
Oh, for sure. Like I remember, I didn't mind necessarily the violence in Walking Dead when I first started watching years and years ago, because they did a lot of that stuff off camera where you'd hear the squish of like guts or someone being ripped apart and your brain would just fill in the rest and you'd be just uncomfortable the rest of the night. But I again, like that show, you can't have like a terrifying zombie apocalypse without a lot of like gross stuff happening because it's a gross thing that's going on. Ryan, I mean, I know you cover a lot of zombie content and also, violence in video games being, a topic that comes up a lot. Like, where's your take on games and or television that, is pushing the explicit tag like to the limit?
I think violence has sort of usurped like nudity and sexual content. I think from what I my entertainment that I'm consuming, I feel like nudity and sexual content has kind of moved towards more for narrative purposes as opposed to like season 1 of Game of Thrones, which was very much not that for the most part. Like I think that was just HBO being like, well, we're HBO, let's HBO this thing. But violence, yeah, I think that they've leaned more into it in terms of with video games and for mature, and then with TV and movies. I mean, Walking Dead is a good example where I think if you look at Walking Dead season 1 and 2 to what they've done in the last 3 or 4 seasons, they've definitely pushed the envelope in terms of like how much of it are we showing on screen, and the deaths that you get with major characters in comparison to earlier seasons to new seasons, like they get pretty grotesque, to the point where I think there was a large exodus of viewers, with a specific scene, I think at the beginning of season 7, with the introduction of Negan. So like again, I think violence has kind of like been sort of left unchecked, whereas I think at least the entertainment I'm viewing has gotten a lot better at using nudity and sexual content for the story as opposed to just having it there because they can. But I don't watch a lot of TV or movies. It's very selective. And again, with all the Marvel and Star Wars and Disney stuff, like it's Disney, right? So they do the strategic violence, like Hawkeye's pretty violent, but like it's strategic violence. It's not very like it's not like the comparison of James Bond, which is can be brutal at times. But yeah, like I think I think stuff has been getting more violent, but again, like I think it like The Witcher, probably it suits, it's for the narrative. Like those games are very violent. Those books, I have not read the books, but I hear they're very violent. So yeah, it makes sense. But I guess like you look at Mortal Kombat as an example, which is just that is violence, but like it's almost gone too far. Like they say turn it up to 11, that turns it up to 15, and then it just becomes just comical at that point. I think and sort of supernatural in the sense that you have characters that are like having their hearts explode, but then 2 seconds later are totally fine and continue fighting. So it's it's not something that one earns its M rating, and you're not gonna let your kid. It's not like the old Mortal Kombat where it was kind of a comical M rating, but now they very much are M ratings, and they do some pretty nasty stuff with it. But it's weirdly all in good fun. I hate to say it that way, but I think like Mortal Kombat has kind of leaned into it and been like, no, we're Mortal Kombat. We're gonna have shattering knees, and we're gonna zoom in on that, and it's gonna be gross, and everyone's gonna be like, oh god, I can't believe that happened, and then move on. Like you know, you've got RoboCop fighting Terminator, but they're like breaking each other's bones, but like totally fine walking and talking and stuff. So, although those are two robots, that's a bad example, really.
One's a
Okay,
cyborg,
I was just
not
gonna
a-
correct myself. One's a robot, you know, with realistic skin shell or whatever they use in the movies, and then
Yeah.
one is a cyborg. Yeah, he's got.
Yeah.
There's parts of his legs that made it through that opening scene, Officer
Yeah.
Murphy. So
Actually, technically they're both cyborgs. It's just that they're kind of the inverse of each other.
Yeah.
oh yes, that's true.
Yeah.
James, you're
Well,
going to say?
cyborg.
I was just going to say, I feel kind of similar about the Mortal Kombat games, and I had a similar conversation with my friends about some of the newer Doom games and how they were really violent. And a friend of mine had like a really good comparison, and Ryan kind of touched on this. Like the violence is almost so grotesque and so over the top that you almost Looney Tunes it, right? Like it's so like outrageous and over the top, and obviously never could happen or be real that you just almost glance over it, right? How many times does Wile E. Coyote get blown up by the dynamite? Every episode, and he comes back the next episode and he's totally fine. And it's kind of that level. It's almost cartoonish, at a certain point, the level of violence.
I find too, it depends on what's happening. Like fighting like floating giant brains in spider jars or whatever in Doom, and I'm making that up. I only go from like images that I've seen.
I mean, you're not that far off, Joel.
Yeah, but they're pretty grotesque to begin with. It's a lot of, it's the kind of thing from like Diablo. Like, I mean, you're hacking things into bloody bits in Diablo, but they're all demons. So like that's kind of, you're doing a good thing by murdering all of these crazy, spider creatures and everything else. And in those situations, you're always like you're killing them as part of the game. It's kill or be killed. But I find the thing that gets me most uncomfortable is when it's a juxtaposition in a situation that you weren't expecting. I can tell you a show. I don't necessarily want to call it like a violent show, but it's more violent and more graphic than you expect. And that's Cowboy Bebop, the now discontinued, the canceled show on Netflix, the adaptation from the anime into the live action. And
Netflix canceled something? Oh no.
Shocker, I know.
I know.
Already?
I was wondering, like, am I going to go back and finish this? And then Netflix is just like, well, we've canceled it. So my answer is like, no, I'm not going to go back and finish this because it's not going to be worth my time. But like, I would sit down to watch that show and like, I'd be eating over dinner and watching what I think is going to be a kind of cartoonish take on, some live action stuff. And then there'd be some like very violent thing happen where they show like a gun wound or a sword fight. And like things are, people are getting slow motion cut and you're talking about like stuff spilling everywhere. You're like, oh wow, that's a lot. And the thing is, like, these days, between the improvements of practical special effects, whether it's blood bags or like little squib things where they explode, combined with like slow motion video, and then of course CG special effects where they're just completely making this stuff up, so you can have someone's head get lopped off in a fight scene and it looks ridiculously real because the effects are pretty solid, right? And you're just kind of like, ugh, I didn't need to see his esophagus as he folded over headless. Like, that's just like, it's a lot of anatomy to eat, take in right now while I'm having mac and cheese, so you slide the ketchup to the other side of the table, like, well, so much for that.
That's how I feel about The Boys on Amazon. I don't know if anyone here has watched The Boys.
Yes, me too. I stopped.
It's a lot sometimes, and even I have to stop and like, oh, I'm only going to watch one episode tonight because it's violent and it's vulgar and there is undertones of sexual violence as well, and it's a lot, and I that's a show that pushes that button.
So, Steven, I know you mentioned earlier you touched on watching The Witcher season 2 with your boys who are teenagers, without getting into too much detail about their ages. But like, when you are and the missus are making those decisions about like what to watch with, when to ask them to turn away, like how do you make those calls ahead of time? Like, do you pre-watch? Like, how do you deal with it with kids who are at an age where on a whole the story would be enjoyable? There's going to be moments where you're just like, God, I wish this creator had just not made it this extreme.
We rely on IMDb a heck of a lot, to be honest, because there's a good parental sort of, I'm not sure what you would call it, almost like a checklist of different things to watch out for. Like there's violence, then it'll have rating from none to severe, nudity and sexual content, basically for smoking, for drugs, and a couple of other things. So if we're thinking, hey, this looks pretty good, and we go check it out, and then just suddenly it's, I guess they're old enough now that they've watched shows that are laced with swear words. No, and it's nothing new to them. But I think they're young enough that we draw the line at the nudity.
Right. Yeah.
And so, and even then, if it suits the context of it, I guess that's for me with the things being taken too far in the direction of sexual content and stuff like that. We won't let them watch sexual content. But if there's nudity and it's brief and it's sort of necessary for the context, it's not always. I mean, I can't remember where I heard it or read it, but I remember someone saying any nudity is gratuitous. Like you don't need it. So arguably anything that they showed nudity wise in The Witcher was in the first, I think, just first 2 episodes, and it's not much of a spoiler. They have prostitutes come in one of the scenes, and
Mhm.
there's nudity there where their blouses are falling off or whatever, and they didn't really need to do that. You could have just had the scene. It was pretty obvious that it was in there, or the women were there for the entertainment of the men. You know what's kind of going on, and they didn't need to show it. Whereas in the first episode, I forget what the name of the creature was, but the creature, I guess I should say, spoiler alert for episode 1 of The Witcher. Um, when the creature comes flying down and reverts back to human form, she's naked. It's very brief, but it totally makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like there's
Yeah.
no way that she wouldn't be, if she is nude as the creature. That's one of the things that always threw me off. Um, I apologize. I forget who mentioned
Ghost in the Shell. That was
Ghost in
me.
the Shell earlier on. Yes. Um, one of my beefs about that is there's a scene in it where she's nude and running on water, and there's a big fight scene and stuff like that. But she had boots on, and so it's like, if she needed to be nude in order to go invisible, then the boots shouldn't have been there. Maybe I'm remembering a different scene, but basically, from what I remember, she didn't need to be nude because, like, how does everything disappear? And I think it was more evident in the movie where she turned invisible, and how does somebody turn invisible when they still got the clothes on and stuff like that? So it doesn't make sense to me. And I guess that's one of the things that, as violent as The Boys is, I think mentally they go too far with it. Um, but when you've got like the guy who turned invisible, he was always invisible, but only when he was naked. So they decided to take that to an extreme and made the guy a total perv. Um, but it makes sense, like if he had clothes on, his clothes aren't going to magically turn invisible like they do in almost every other show that exists. And the head honcho, or what's his name? Totally
Homelander.
blanking on it. Homelander,
Oh,
yes. So like when he does things that are violent and it's totally graphic and feels unnecessary, but the reality is, if he did that to any human or anything like that, that's exactly what would happen. Whereas you have other superhero movies and people seem to get hit by these unbelievably, like, super powerful humans, and they just go flying across the room, bang off a pillow or something, fall to the ground, and get back up just sort of in pain. It's just like, nope, they'd be dead. And so that's the only thing I'll say in favor of the violence in something like Boys, is that it's like it's true to what would happen if a superhuman being punched a regular human.
I feel like Kick-Ass was also one of the early ones to do that as well, where you kind of got a sense of, yeah, this is exactly how injured you would actually be if this was a real thing.
Exactly. I don't say I'm a fan of it, or I can really stomach it a whole lot all the time, but I appreciate that aspect of it. It's like a
Mm.
demonstration of what it would really be. Like it's miraculous how many humans actually survive when there's an alien invasion. They don't actually show, like in Marvel, a ton of people dying.
I will say, Steven, I do remember the scene in Ghost in the Shell that you're talking about, but I don't remember if she's wearing boots or not. I will say I could fill a whole episode of the Citadel Cafe talking about the 1995 Ghost in the Shell movie because it's my favorite movie. But I also understand that you know there are issues with it, and I can definitely understand why someone would kind of bounce off uh, some of the, I guess, more sexual aspects of it, which kind of ties me into my answer to this question, which is kind of like what Alistair was saying earlier. I think there's definitely a time and a place for some of this stuff. They're tools in a creator's toolbox, right? And Obi-Wan fighting Anakin in the climactic battle where Anakin gets beat up and becomes Darth Vader. Yeah, that's got to be a little bit more violent and grotesque, and we need to see that. But the other times, like in The Boys, where it's like, man, I don't know if I needed to see like her jawbone, where the guy who runs really fast ran through her and turned her into a puddle. You
Yeah,
know,
fair enough.
uh, uh, so, but the one that I find really weird for me is a lot of sexual content. So kind of going back into anime, my wife is a huge anime fan, absolutely huge anime fan. But anime is kind of known sometimes for having a lot of fan service, and to her, like it's nothing. She just glosses right over it, doesn't phase her at all. Whereas for me, it makes me really uncomfortable. I even made the joke to her one time. So you're watching this anime for the plot, are you? Oh yeah, definitely watching it for the plot. Oh, okay, watching for the plot. Sure, sure. Just there was just that level of fan service, and I can't not miss it. And I almost get like I don't know if mad's the word, but it feels sometimes when a show is overtly sexual to the point of just titillation. I almost feel offended, almost like they're pandering to me. Like they're taking a shortcut to try and get my attention rather than like you were saying about that scene in The Witcher. Does it need to be there? Like we got the idea, right? We didn't need to be that uh, explicit with it.
I think country of origin also plays a part in it as well. So when you have got anime
Absolutely.
and stuff like that, especially in England as well, a lot of British stuff has had nudity in for a long time, and there's been a lot more of it over there than there was in North America. I remember when I was younger, with shows that would be on that wouldn't just show naked women, but also full frontal nudity for men as well.
Mhm.
And I think that the British censorship hasn't been as bad for blocking a lot of that stuff. But we also had something called the watershed. So the idea was that after 9 o'clock, it wasn't like anything goes, but that's when nudity could be shown and things like that. But anything before 9 p.m. was an absolute no, which was also good for people with kids where, they're going in bed by 9 o'clock, they don't have to worry either.
I think Country of Origin's a great point, and it ties back into the success and or lack of success of Cowboy Bebop. I always ask myself like, what's going to be the next thing in Hollywood now that superhero movies have kind of had their time, and we're starting to wonder what the next cycle is. And to me, the answer seems to constantly be we're going to adapt anime. And I always find those anime adaptations are hit or miss, just because they're just from a different place, like they're from a different cultural context, and sometimes depending on the piece, that can translate really well to a Hollywood movie, and sometimes it can't. And so I think that's a really great point. Culture of origin.
Also, time, product of their time. There's some
Yeah,
stuff,
absolutely.
and some even if it's not necessarily graphically violent or graphically sexual. Sometimes just conversations in films, you're like, oh, woof, wow, that really was in a movie. Okay, well, when was this made? Oh, 1975. That makes sense now. It's the kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
I'm with you, James. Like, I think that I have missed out on probably some famous slash favorite anime of people that are into it, because I even might like the animation, but the moment that things get really sexual, especially with women in anime, I feel insulted, and I feel
Yeah.
not necessarily offended, but I'm just kind of like, I don't feel like, I feel like I'm part of the problem if I continue to watch this. And it
Yeah.
might be that I'm, I might be missing out on something, but I just can't get past it. It's like, okay, does she really need to be in a mini skirt with her boobs hanging out? Not right now. Like, like why? And then you're just like, it's also a cartoon, which makes it weird. Like,
Right.
I've missed
Yeah.
that whole boat growing up. I was never into that stuff. I was watching animation for like the quality of the animation, so I wasn't necessarily watching a lot of anime back when I was going through school and stuff. So I missed that. They don't have any nostalgia pings for me, so to get into them now as an adult, I'm just like, nope, I have a hard time jumping that fence.
I had that experience, Joel. Actually, I did not watch Neon Genesis Evangelion, as a teenager, which was still when I was a teenager, it was still 10 years after it came out. But I tried to go back and watch it this year, actually, during the pandemic, because I have some friends who love Evangelion. This is like their anime, right? And man, like I really bounced off it, and much like you said, oh, this is the conversation they're having. When did this made again? Oh, 1995. Yeah, that's why that conversation or that scene is happening, right? So I had that exact experience this year that you're talking about, Joel. It's hard to go back to some of that stuff if you don't have that nostalgia for it growing up.
For sure.
For me, I find it with anime, it always makes me angry when they do that fan service stuff, but whether I'll watch it all the way through or not depends on when they throw it in. If they have the show be good enough and I'm hooked, and then they throw it in, I'm usually angry at myself, but I'll watch it because the story is that feels that compelling at the time. But if they throw it in, like one of the common tropes is called the accidental pervert, where a guy like falls into a woman and accidentally grabs her breasts,
Yes.
and
Yes.
if they throw that in like the first 15 minutes or whatever, I'm out of there.
And like I said, I love my wife. Her love of anime is one of the things I love about her. To her, it doesn't phase her at all. Like, she just glosses right over. It's like, oh, yeah, this is a trope, and as you said, and this is just how it is. And she just totally glosses over. It doesn't affect her at all. And I'm the one with the problem.
Well, we are going to get into the main discussion, which of course is going to be about the season finale of Hawkeye on Disney Plus. But before that, we have to say goodbye to Mr. Ryan Murphy, who has other duties. Christmas is coming and also hasn't seen the show, so we don't want to spoil it for Ryan. So, Ryan, my friend, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight.
Yeah, I always enjoy coming on the Citadel Cafe, and I always greatly enjoy coming on the holiday episode to chat with the whole crew. And yeah, I'm not caught up on Hawkeye. I'm gonna try to do that before Christmas. That's what the goal is. Not that there's anything happening after Christmas that I gotta watch The Witcher as well. So I'm way behind on TV stuff, but yeah, I'm gonna try to catch up on Hawkeye. But I look forward to listening to the later half of the holiday episode once I've caught up. But yeah, I am gonna have to jet. But it was really great chatting with everybody again.
Before you go, where can people find your work? Because I know that you've got a lot of podcasts in the bag right now for the holidays, and I'm sure people are looking forward to listening to some things. Like, where can people go to find your podcasting work?
So I have a video game podcast, The Gamers In. I do a zombie podcast, Zombies Ate My Podcast, and a parenting slash geek, sort of similar to the Citadel Cafe, video games, TV, movies, called Dungeons and Diapers. So we often have half the show be about, geeky stuff, and then the other half being about being parents and family life. But as you can probably imagine, those blend together, playing video games with the kids, watching TV shows with the kids and stuff like that. So, yeah, you can find all that at tgistudios.com. You can check out all the podcasts there. And Extra Life, we've been doing Extra Life. Our team, the Gamers In team, just crossed $7,000 raised US. I think that's our best year yet.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, we're raising funds for Children's Miracle Network hospitals around the world. I'm playing specifically for sick kids in Toronto, and donations close in just a week. So our campaign ends on December 31st. You can go to bit.ly/extraliferyan for more details and to donate. We appreciate all the support, and it's been an amazing year to see everyone come out. And someone went through our team and just kind of anonymously topped us all off and got us all to our team goals. So it was super appreciated. It's crazy the generosity that people have when it comes to the Extra Life event specifically. There's a huge community of people that just are amazing supporters. Whether you're coming out and you're watching, you're donating, you're sharing the links, letting me come on the podcast and talk about it. Like that all helps, and it goes a long way to for this cause to be so popular. I think the whole Extra Life has raised over like 100 million. It's a crazy number each year. They just keep topping it. So it's really great to see because it's an amazing cause.
That's fantastic, dude. I'm so happy to hear it. Well, all the best to you and the family over the holidays. I'm sure we'll be talking to you over the break and in the new year. And of course, you'll be back on the show, I'm sure, before too long. We'll talk to you later.
Everyone have a great holiday. Happy New Year. And I'm sure we'll chat throughout the holidays. But yep, have a good one. Enjoy Hawkeye and have a good night.
Thanks. You too.
You too, Ryan.
As promised, we are about to talk about the season finale of Hawkeye and probably the season as a whole. It's not that long. It's only 6 episodes. So if you have not finished Hawkeye on Disney Plus, we will see you later. You will be back, but we will see you later because you absolutely need to go watch this show. As of now, I have watched all the episodes. I believe everybody else here on the panel has as well. We'll have links to the website, Wikipedia for Hawkeye, for Clint Barton, Kate Bishop, as well as IMDb, all that kind of good stuff in the show notes, as per usual. I will just not be able to talk about any of this without spoiling stuff. So you have been warned, you have been forewarned, and we're going to get into it. And I think the easiest thing to do here is to maybe start with the pros. I'll go around the table just from left to right here. Alastair, what were your kind of first impression pros of the finale? I guess we'll start, but then of course anything you have to add over the season as well.
Oh, I've loved it. I thought it's been great, and I especially liked seeing is it Yelena?
Yes, yeah, Natasha's sister.
Yes, just her fighting with Kate Bishop, and just the kind of the playfulness that they have between them, and how that Kate would be dead in a second if that's what she wanted. And she's just kind of just playing with her really more than anything, and it's almost like a little bit of a fun distraction than much. But that, I think, was probably the highlight for me through that.
Something that I liked about Yelena as well, which I got a taste of in the Black Widow movie, but then also in her appearance in Hawkeye, is that Hawkeye and Black Widow have this constant kind of like banter exchange when they're fighting, and it's usually got nothing to do with what is going on around them. It's about like, what we had for dinner or like some other kind of cheeky stuff. But then I find that Yelena is the same way. The difference is that she's talking about usually what's happening. Like she's not necessarily, especially if she's fighting, the quips are about the fight. It's usually about like, how much the other person sucks, or, in some cases how good the other person is, which I thought was very funny. But every once in a while she gets into the mundane, and even that can be kind of funny. There was a scene when she first appeared, I think, with Kate Bishop, and she was talking about like it was the only fork that she had in the apartment or something, and just kind of like judging her existence as like this comical kind of like, it's almost as if, and this is really kind of like a through point for Yelena from the Black Widow movie. It's almost like because she's been kind of like woken up and has been waking up other Black Widow agents, she's trying to find her personality. So you can almost see her kind of taking jabs at how she wants to be, whether she wants to be sarcastic all the time or serious all the time, or a little bit of both. Like you can kind of see her working that out. It's kind of like, it reminds me of like scenes from like the Big Bang Theory where like Sheldon doesn't get sarcasm or something. Like there's some parallels there with her kind of discovering what it's like to be in the real world and how she's going to fit.
Yeah, and you kind of get a bit of that with Kate as well, like how she's going to fit in this new world as a superhero of sorts. And I think that Kate Bishop is also just a very, very good stand-in for anybody who's wanted to be the partner of their favorite superhero. When you kind of see just in the very early episodes her kind of looking at Clint and just, being mesmerized by how good he was and just wanting to fight alongside him. And then to the point when I think it was a really emotional moment when he actually says that he's a partner and he's there with her to the end. Something along the lines of, her problems are his problems.
I got a lot of that out of the last episode. I feel like they've been kind of pushing Kate to the side, or there's been a kind of a broken record to the point where I was getting a little bit sick of it, where Clint was just constantly saying like, this is too dangerous, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm just, you think I don't want a partner. Please don't could you just stay, I gotta go do stuff. Dangerous.
I think it's understanding though, because he did lose his before.
Yes.
And there's the mother as well coming in. So yeah.
No, I get it. I feel like it's just because it took a while to get there. And there was one episode, I think it was a short episode. I want to say it was episode 4, where it was the first appearance of Yelena and they fought on the roof. I think it might have been 4 or 5. Pretty sure it was 4. It was only like 30 minutes long, and it was over before it started, it felt like. And the whole time I just felt like he was just saying like, look, go home. Like the whole time. And she just kept on not listening to him. And just as a viewer, you're just kind of like, when is he going to realize that she's not going to listen? And when am I going to have to stop hearing him tell a kid to stop doing something that they're just going to keep on doing? But it's a small criticism, because I mean the bulk of the show was very, very well done. I like the beats that you mentioned there in the finale, with him saying, okay, you're my partner, I'm here, we're in it together, I'm going to see this through, I'm going to make sure that you get through this, because of the emotional stakes, because she found out that her mother was in league with the Kingpin at the end of season 5, or episode 5, and he knows how serious that is. She doesn't. and he needs to she knows how serious that she's put together that her mother is a criminal and a murderer. But he understands how dangerous the Kingpin is. And I feel like it's that combination of like wanting to protect her physically, but then also knowing that she's going to be going through some very tough things and tough decisions are going to have to be made emotionally if she's going to cross this line to be a hero. And I thought it was really well timed. And they went from being like punchy. I think at the time they were putting together this comical arsenal of like trick arrows. And she was like red label, like label maker, putting like bad, like super bad, very dangerous, do not touch. She's putting all these labels and things. And it switches from that to like this emotional moment of like, you're my partner, we're in this to the end. And I really appreciated the time that they took to put those pathos moments in.
I think the final pro that I'll mention, just as a small aside as well, is just another visualization of the snap when she actually comes back and you see the room transform around her, and kind of what that would look like from the perspective of somebody who was just coming back into existence. I thought that was really cleverly done. It did make me wonder though, because she's in the bathroom when it happens. Like, how odd would it be for somebody to blip in the bathroom of your home, and you're just one day, having a shower, using the facilities, whatever, and somebody just blips back into existence. Yeah, it'd be kind of awkward. So when that happened and she's sort of came back, it'd just be like, what if somebody was in the room at the time as well?
How does the blip work? Like, what if they built something else where you were standing? Like, do you blip back into a wall? Like, do you find yourself locked in a basement? Like, is it like Minecraft where like you transport into the blocks and you start to suffocate? Like what? I don't know how that would work.
I think it would be. I think that's probably what would happen.
Yeah.
Me too.
I don't know. Like I can see people like being, they were standing somewhere in a vacant lot, and then of course a building is there, and then they're in the basement, but the basement is locked. But I don't know whether the snap, because I think if when Tony snapped and he's putting everything back exactly as it should be, but then 5 years into the future, I'm assuming he thought that everybody would be safely returned, so people aren't blipping like, if they were on an overpass and the overpass is not there, they're not being blipped 45 meters into the air and then dropping to their death, So I'm assuming maybe we're just thinking about it too much.
Well, at least it wasn't an R rating and this isn't The Boys. So we don't have to worry about it too much.
And actually that brings up a really good plus for me to tie back to the email from LBV, in that I really enjoyed some of the final fight scenes between Clint Barton and I don't remember his name. He's a waste of space as the bad guy. Kazi. And like there's some haymakers and some roundhouses that Clint hits him with, and it's just like it is all out pain. It's not a fancy kung fu fight. It's a lot of just like thunk takedown, and man, it doesn't need to be bloody. Like it doesn't need to be, just the sound effect and the way that they choreograph and cut those scenes together. I really liked it. I thought that it gave there's a very James Bond moment where Clint is slowly taking off the tuxedo to then get down into a looser shirt so that he can use his bow and arrow on the top floor or the 12th floor, wherever he is. And there's a lot of those kind of like disarming scenes and like using bombs and all that kind of stuff. And again, violent, but like not explicit violence.
Yeah. Well, there's even the guy who is hit. I mean, obviously, a lot of people are hit by arrows with all sorts of different abilities, which are amazing. But there's one that seems to wrap around a guy and then shoots up like a rocket and drags the guy up into the sky with him. You don't see him fall back down. So it's kind of left to your own imagination as to how high he was before the rocket ran out of power.
Yeah. A lot of them seem to be like kind of like disarm, disable, paralyze, like that kind of stuff, electrocute. I loved the Batman-esque magnetic arrow. Obviously like kind of like a Tony Stark bag of tricks kind of thing, where like Clint magnifies the fence around the Rockefeller Center. I think that's where they are. And it sucks the guns out of everybody's hands, which brings, for people bringing a machine gun to a bow and arrow fight, it evens the odds dramatically, because now everybody's using knives and bats. And of course, and Clint and Kate have got, these crazy amount of arsenal arrows. My favorite ones were the ones that had like the little pygmy darts in them. So like it would hit the ground or it would hit another person, and then it would be just
yeah.
and like it just spit like arrows everywhere, and people would drop like flies. And I don't know where all these tracksuit guys were coming from. Like they were just coming out of these things like clown cars. There was got to be a couple hundred people in this fight scene. It was, I mean, very, very well done. I think one of my biggest pluses from the season, where there were some slow moments where I was kind of like, I was enjoying the banter, but there was sometimes where it was like, okay, can we get things going a little bit faster? And they definitely gave you a payoff in that end scene where like Kate and Clint on the ice get the throwdown together. The reveal of Clint in an actual superhero outfit, which we never thought we were going to see. They comment on it later too, which is funny. And they comment on it during, like, Kate is like, "Oh my gosh, you're wearing it?" He's like, "Look, we got bigger things to worry about right now. Okay, we just yeah, I'm wearing it. Just let's just survive. We can talk about it later." But they kept a really good balance of the banter between the two of them. The really cool moments, and there's some like no look explosion arrow shots. There's like all this crazy stuff. They're communicating with like looks and trust me, I'll do this, all that kind of stuff. And I have to say, like, there had to have been a moment for not Kate, but for Haley Steinfeld to be in a Marvel TV show with Hawkeye throwing down, you know, as partners in a superhero battle in the climax of this series. Like that had to be some giddy moments from a career perspective. Like I hope she enjoyed it as much as she looked like she was enjoying it as Kate, because man, talk about a career checkbox. Like that's some fun times. Steven, I know that you and I have talked about the first half of the season. How did you feel the last few went?
I thought they went really well. I mean, you've already touched it on it already, but Yelena's presence in this series, I loved. I actually went back the conversation in the kitchen where Yelena's making the mac and cheese and she's saying, you know, first time in New York, wants a girls' night out and stuff like that. Like Florence Pugh is phenomenal in that scene. We laughed, rewounded parts of it and watched it again, but she was just so natural. Like she really felt like she was there and wanted to have fun. Like, tell me what the sights are and stuff like that. And she laughed. Like just it was such a refreshingly natural delivery that I went back and I watched the entire scene again. I thought it was so good. So yeah, I mean, I knew I've seen her in other things and liked her before, but became like an ultra fan in that moment. So very grateful that she was brought into this. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's been said. The fight scenes were excellent, and that the fight scene where he's fighting Kazi and then finished it with the suplex. I mean, it's like you never see that in actual fight scenes, and I'm glad that like he did it and then he got knocked out, because you know, whenever you see that happen in like professional wrestling or stuff like that, not that I'm a huge fan of it, but I remember it from a kid. But there's no getting up from stuff like that, and the fact that they would do it on a cement floor, it was a finisher for sure.
James, any criticisms of the suplex?
I did not see the suplex in question, but as a big pro wrestling fan, we can definitely talk about the art of suplexes sometime. That's for sure.
I know that you haven't seen the show, but I'm asking, like, in terms of the suplex as a devastating knockout move or as a mid-match kind of like knock the opponent around move. Like, where do you stand? Do you think it should be a little bit more of a end game situation?
It depends on the wrestler. A lot of times, some wrestlers, they use a suplex as their finishing move. And so if that's the wrestler's finishing move, then in the story of the match, that's the finishing move. You sell it like it's a finishing maneuver. If it's not your finishing move and you're just kind of doing it, and as a transition from one spot in the story to the next, then yeah, you know, you sell it. It's definitely, you know, a devastating move, but it's not the finishing move. So it definitely depends on who is delivering the suplex. I will say quickly too, sometimes, not often, but sometimes you see a suplex in like mixed martial arts, like UFC or what have you. And it can be a finishing move there. You know, guys and girls, do definitely get knocked out if you happen to take a suplex, although obviously in mixed martial arts, it is much harder to set that up. But yeah, in terms of the wrestling question, it depends on who's delivering the move.
But for me, it was always one of those moves that, you know, in professional wrestling, especially, they've got the sort of the shock absorbed ring, and then for fight rings as well, you're not fighting on cement.
No,
and so
that's
when
right.
when they did this in an office building and basically suplexed the guy or Hawkeye suplexed the guy into a cement floor and he did not get back up, I was grateful, because there's just, again, so many times when people get flung across a room into a wall or into a pillar and they just get up and keep going. It happens. It's like practically a cliche that they're flung into a pillar of some kind and they get back up. So no, just fight scenes throughout were pretty tight.
I definitely would agree. In that case, if it's on like a cement floor or like a really hard surface, yeah, that's a finishing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think too that they have a really good balance with the not comical fight scenes, but the lighter kind of like the ones that are meant to be almost like a dance, to be an interaction with characters, and then ones that are like Clint, where like the other guy's trying to kill him and he's trying to just knock him out, disarm, like kind of remove him from the equation. A really good example is the fight, which I'm sure you enjoyed, Stephen, because of how long the shot was. And that is when Kate and Yelena are going through like several different offices and door jams and stuff, and they're constantly like flipping and punching and kicking, and there's all these stuff. And then in the last room before Yelena jumps out the window, they have this conversation with like, just, wow, that was a really good kick. Like that form was like, that was amazing. Like that actually hurt.
And that time you did that throw, that was so good.
Exactly.
Loved it. I mean, their chemistry, like I hope at some point we get a Hawkeye and Black Widow duo that is the two of them, because their comedic chemistry, like just their banter, is off the chart.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I was praising Yelena, but it was Yelena and Kate Bishop in that conversation that was just, it was so good.
I agree. I would love to see, and that would be kind of like a cool full circle kind of thing. You know, you got Clint Barton, Hawkeye, and Scarlett Johansson, and Natasha Romanoff, you know, Black Widow. What's Yelena Belova's actual, like, does she have a superhero name? Is she like the White Widow or something like that?
No, she is a Black Widow. That was what the
no, I knew that
kind of.
But in the comics, do you know if she has like her own
I do
sort
not.
of identity?
I didn't actually know she was part of it until the Black Widow movie.
Oh, maybe she isn't. I'm assuming that they all have some sort of.
Yeah, she's just there as Black Widow, in the same way that Kate is Hawkeye, which they kind of mention at the very end, like the last bit of the episode.
Oh no, I knew that about the show. Yeah. I mean like in the comics stuff where they've not actually told us like whether or not Yelena has like a pseudonym, you know, just like the made up names, as Peter Parker.
Yeah, no, she's just another Black Widow.
Okay.
In the same way, yeah. Like how we got another Captain America now. It's they just did that, and this is not speaking from experience reading these specific comics. This is just me doing a little bit of looking up on Wikipedia and stuff.
Well, speaking about screen presence, kind of hard not to notice the fact that Kingpin is in episode 6, and in it a lot more than I thought he was going to be. I saw the little, you know, video drop in the end of season 5, and I thought, okay, they're kind of making a nice nod there, but I didn't realize, because again, I didn't look ahead on IMDb and I didn't check out the trailers. I just watched the final episode today at lunchtime, and man, forgot how much I missed D'Onofrio as Kingpin, and he is, I want to say, more menacing than he was in Daredevil. Even though Daredevil was a more violent show, I feel like you enter into this, if you've watched Daredevil on Netflix, then you know what Kingpin's capable of. But they managed to do a number of things, I think, to make him feel both more colorful in terms of his wardrobe, because he was very clean cut on Daredevil. He had a lot of like purple shirts that were tucked in and stuff like that. Whereas here he's more like a Caribbean flower shirt and like little not top hat, but like little fedora sort of situation. And I feel like they do some camera tricks, because I understand that he's 6'3". D'Onofrio's a big guy, but like they make him look and feel larger than life in a lot of scenes, and it works terrifically. Combined with the sound effects, whenever he hits someone or is hit by someone, he almost feels like he absorbs it. Like if he gets punched or pushed or something happens, even when he gets knocked over, it still feels like whatever hit him took half of that. Like he gets hit by a car when Eleanor drives into him, and he gets up after, but like the initial kind of like crash, he gets pushed by the car. It doesn't feel like he necessarily gets taken out by the car. And I feel like they did an excellent job kind of bringing that kind of menace. And then to top the the battle scene with Clint and Kate, Kate then takes on the Kingpin. I think probably in a way she doesn't even know who he is. And if she did, she might not have even gone toe to toe with him, but she goes toe to toe with him and she gets the tar beaten out of her. I don't necessarily know why she's alive. I feel like he was sort of either toying with her, or I'm not sure what he was doing. I felt like he was holding back to a certain extent.
I think so.
But as the fight went on, he seemed to be hitting harder and harder. Like I felt to me like he was maybe escalating it. But then of course she outsmarts him with all the arrows, and she ends up, what does she do? She steals his cufflink, which I thought was a really cool, like, I kept on wondering why she was wrestling with him and kept on getting into these, like, judo kind of flip around moves with him, until they made the reveal that she had actually kind of like stolen his cufflink while she was grappling with him. And then she used that with that flick that she got taught how to do by Clint, and she set off one of the special trick arrows. And that's what ends up, knocking him out enough that she can escape. The whole time she was talking with her mom, I thought he was going to get up. Like, I'm just like, you've just established that it's very difficult to knock this guy down. Why are you still standing here talking? I felt like that was a weird kind of pause, but I love the fact that she beat him. Like, it's so cool.
With you saying about him holding back, I do wonder if that was something to do with her mother. Maybe he's just kind of like, well, if I don't kill her, I've got something to hold over the mother, perhaps. But the other thing with you saying about how much he can take, we hear a gunshot, but we never see it getting fired. So we also don't know if he actually did get shot.
Oh, I don't think he did. And that's got nothing to do with like his powers per se. Because as far as I know, the Kingpin doesn't necessarily have any powers. I know he's like super strong and super kind of like, we'll say dense. Like he doesn't seem to get hurt very much. But the way that I've seen it described quickly researching before the podcast tonight is basically just think of him like a sumo wrestler without any fat on him. Like he's just genetically super strong as a human, not in the fact that he's like a superhuman, but he's just a very strong individual that has a lot of training. We think I saw it in the first season of Daredevil where he comes back from Japan or something. Like he's obviously had a lot of training. Like he can hold his own. And we know he's a violent guy. And between his rage and his physical ability, I think he's just that kind of dangerous.
He also had he had special suits made in the Daredevil series as well, because Daredevil went to this special tailor of sorts and had this bulletproof, knife-proof costume or outfit made for him. And Kingpin went to the same guy and had a series of suits made of the same stuff. So even if he did get shot, there's a good chance he was wearing one of those suits that wouldn't let the bullet go through. And I don't know, but I mean, if all of his wardrobe was made of that stuff, then she may have shot him, thought he was dead, walked away, and then he'll just get up because, he's a 3-piece bulletproof suit.
I just think that it's just that Disney would not go through all the trouble of bringing him in, cross the streams from the Daredevil MCU,
Agreed.
Only to shoot him and kill him at the end of the Hawkeye season. Like that's just not happening. So unless you want to make all of your fans very mad at the same time, so that's the only reason I don't think that would happen. Because otherwise, if that was the case, they would have shown it. Right, like if that was the end, D'Onofrio would have wanted a death scene. I would imagine. He's so good. He's so good as that character.
Yeah, I've not seen Daredevil, so I've not seen him
really?
playing the Kingpin.
You need to, dude.
Yeah, it's good.
Well, the thing is, I remember watching Spider-Man the animated series and remembering Kingpin from that, and he felt like that Kingpin that I knew. Like he looks just the part.
Oh yeah,
it's such a great resemblance what they've done there.
The only beef I'd have about Kingpin in the Daredevil series is I found that he kind of does that voice where he felt like he was, to me anyway, felt like he was forcing the scruffy voice a little bit in Daredevil sometimes, where it felt like maybe he's grown into having that raspy voice at 62 years old. Like he is, like it felt more. He felt more like a believable, like, or he was true as Kingpin, whereas in Daredevil, there's a few times where I felt like he was forcing the raspiness.
I agree, and I think that by the end of is it season 2 in Daredevil? How many seasons of Daredevil are there? 2 or 3?
3.
I feel like by the time it all wraps up, or maybe I'm remembering Kingpin from other series like Defenders and stuff, if he was in that. But I feel like he's grown as an actor throughout the character, and instead of that graspy, growly voice, he just lowers his voice to like he can be menacing by speaking super softly and matter of factly, as opposed to like gruffly and growly. I have the same issue with some of the dialogue from and delivery from The Witcher season 2, to the point where I'm positive they didn't film that in sequential order, and some of the climactic scenes that they might have filmed early on have some very season 1 growly Geralt, whereas then mid-season and dealing with a lot of stuff with Ciri, you're like, okay, he's still got something gruff going on, but he's not doing like Christian Bale's Batman anymore. And part of it is just the fact that I see Henry Cavill on all kinds of social media and interviews and stuff like that. And so I know what he sounds like as a human. And so I know he doesn't sound anything like Geralt. So I know he's putting on a bit of a voice, but at the same time, I didn't mind when he does like the American thing for Superman. So like, it just, I don't know. But yeah, the gruff stuff with Kingpin, I didn't notice it in Hawkeye, but I think I remember it from Daredevil. James, have you seen the Daredevil series?
I actually haven't, but I know that Vincent D'Onofrio has played the Kingpin. I think not just in the series, but I remember right, didn't he play the Kingpin in the original Daredevil movie as well?
No, that was Michael.
Or was that somebody else? Okay.
Yeah, that was Michael Clark Duncan, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, that's right. I apologize.
Yeah.
He's huge and menacing in that. So that was a good choice too.
The thing that I remember D'Onofrio from my childhood is Men in Black. He played the bug guy, the guy that's like more sugar, water, like that.
Did he?
He's the farmer that got taken over by the big bug alien. Yeah, that's him.
First thing I saw him in was The Cell, the Jennifer Lopez movie. And he was creepy as all get out in that.
That's right. Yeah.
But I just saw him recently in The Unforgivable, Netflix movie with Sandra Bullock, and he's like super friendly guy in that. I'm like, man, I've never seen him as anything but a bad guy, and he nails the super friendly guy really well too.
I've seen him interviewed, and it's kind of weird when you see like that, because he's fairly friendly and outgoing and stuff like that, and very humble. And so you see that, you're like, this is not at all like the Kingpin. It must be really fun to play the Kingpin. Like if you're a nice guy in real life, I can imagine playing like a super villain, but playing it in a good way where you're not trying to be like, a super villain with powers necessarily. You're more like in the same way that I would imagine that it's Josh Brolin that played Thanos, right? Like I know he doesn't physically get to be on film, but again, Thanos is as much about the intellect as he is about the physical presence, and the dialogue for that, like that evil kind of delivery, that absolution, that purity of mission it's got to be fun as an actor to be just kind of like evil to the core, and calmly evil. I think that's kind of what kind of freaks people out.
Yeah, his voice was so well suited to Thanos. It's ridiculous. Like it was just such a perfect pick.
So to get some of the small cons out of the way, I really felt that Jack was a comic relief waste of space. He never redeemed himself for me. He really was just intolerable and a misdirect for like and one more thing on Eleanor's like red card as far as her crimes, was trying to frame him for the murder of his own uncle. He's clueless. And I understand that, we were pegging him as the villain, or we thought that he was very clearly the bad guy when we were first talking about it, Stephen. And I'm happy to be proven wrong, and it was a deeper plot than I thought, and it ended up being her mom, which is complicated for Kate and has some real emotional pathos for the series. But like, if you take Jack out of it, all that's really missing is a scapegoat. He really doesn't do anything other than add some comedic swordplay to the whole thing, which I didn't need. It just feels like another kind of imbalance, kind of like he's just a bystander that used to fence in college. He's apparently hitting bad guys, and superheroes get into fights and they don't get arrested by the police. But like, how come Jack doesn't get arrested by the police for bringing a sword in public and attacking people, even though they were attacking him? Like, I don't know. That to me was kind of an oversight.
It would have been more meaningful if it was somebody who meant a great deal to Kate Bishop.
Yeah.
Like if it was her, not that you want her actual father. Like I realized that he died, and it was,
part
that
of
was
her,
the cause of a lot of her growth early on. But if it was somebody that was truly dear to her, that she would have been devastated by them being like the head of this corrupt company, then I don't know.
Yeah, which is what I mean. That's the whole thing behind her mom. Like that's the card
Yeah.
that they played. But again, like it didn't, to me, it didn't serve enough purpose. I also was disappointed with Kazi and Maya. Maya just never knocked it out of the park for me. It's a cool concept for a character. I'm glad they're doing it. You know, Steve and I, we talked about the importance of, you know, representation and stuff in Marvel and all that kind of stuff last time, which I think is great. But just critically as a character in this series, I just didn't. She missed the mark for me. It wasn't really the best thing. And Kazi and Maya just talk in circles every time they're on camera together. In the last 3 episodes, they say the same thing to one another, and neither one of them are listening. And it drives me nuts. It's a waste of 5 minutes before I can get back to enjoying Kate and Clint. You know, like I didn't really enjoy it. Alastair, what did you think of Maya?
Yeah, I kind of agree on the same lines. I think this goes back to the point you were just making with regards to Jack, is that, you know, it kind of ended up being shoved aside for something that fortunately was a lot better, you know, with the Kingpin and stuff. Because by the end, I just wasn't really caring about Maya as a villain in this whole mix.
I mean, and the idea is that they're trying to spin her into not being a villain so that she can have her own show and
yeah.
be the hero.
I didn't know. That's
and that's the thing.
stuff.
It's the kind of thing where I feel like they kind of forced it. And if they were going to do that, I feel like they should have brought her in very early. Like she should have been in all 6 episodes. I think we only got her in the end of episode 2, maybe. So I don't know. I feel like they could have done more there. I could be misremembering, but
if they're using it as a platform to launch it into her own show, then at least we should hopefully get the depth and things that we would want from that then.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have the time. So, and again, I'm not poo-pooing Maya as a character in the MCU. I'm just saying that her appearance and her arc in Hawkeye just really didn't do it for me.
I would rather they did something that's similar to what they did with Yelena, where they brought her in halfway or more than halfway through, and it was significant to this moving the story forward. And if they had done that, and at the end, right now, I mean, Yelena, I'm really curious to know where she's going, because I mean, she just walked away at the end. And like I said, I'm hoping that they bring her back. So if they had done something where Maya wasn't, like you said, just this. I thought the fight scenes she was in were really cool, and there's some stuff about the backstory which could be interesting, but it never really landed fully, I don't think. And again, this has nothing to do with the actor, has nothing to do with like the character. It didn't quite stick in it. It felt like it was very much just a launching platform.
We don't want to spend the first 4 episodes of the Maya series explaining who Maya is.
Yeah, but at the same time, like you and I talked about how they introed Kate Bishop at the beginning, and then they basically used the opening credits to give you her history from childhood to where she was now. Like, and that was so tight. That was so well done.
Mm-hmm.
They could have possibly done something like that with Maya as well.
I think one thing it does do well, though, is really kind of set up just how many pies the Kingpin has his finger in right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
True.
You know, it's you've got all these people, and really they're all just under this one umbrella of him.
Well, I mean, any Marvel superhero that is based in New York, which is a lot of them, the Kingpin is usually a villain in those series. So like he's a big problem. He's like a Lex Luthor sort of deal in terms of he's a Spider-Man villain, he's a Daredevil villain, he's a Hawkeye villain apparently. Like there's a lot going on there. The one last thing that I'll mention is that I decided to watch through the entire credits, thinking there's probably going to be something. Ended up sitting and cringing through the entirety of the Avengers musical presentation that they gave us a glimpse of, probably too much of in episode 1. And it's all there, all of it. And it's the same thing, because by the time you get to the end of it, you realize you're watching the end that Clint was watching in the first episode. And you sit through all of it and they give you nothing.
No.
That was the thing that they give you. And I was mad. I was just like, come on.
Yeah, I had the gears turning, just kind of like, oh, this is that one from the first one, and we're going through. And I was just thinking, like, you almost kind of have your half expectation, half wish for what you hope it's going to be. And for me, I was like, please just be an elderly Steve Rogers cringing at the back.
Oh, I was really hoping they would do that too. I even said exactly the same thing. It'd be cool if he was in it just for the sheer just like the cringe factor as well.
Yeah. Like doesn't have to say a word, just be there in silence, just with the aged makeup and stuff. Oh, it would have been that it would have made it.
Especially if he has the exact same line that Barton had, where it's just like Ant-Man wasn't even there.
Yes,
right. That would have been
good.
That would have been pretty epic. I thought it was a great series. I would like to see more stuff like this from Marvel. It had a really good balance of comedy, banter, action, grumpy old man. Like it had a Lethal Weapon vibe. It had obviously an Avengers vibe. And what I liked about it is that the stakes got high enough that it would have warranted like a feature film, right? Like it had the same sort of scale as far as importance to the characters involved. And so, I mean, I highly recommend it. I think it's great. It's fun that they made it a Christmas themed, show, and it came out this time of year. I thought that worked well because you're watching something that's Christmas themed, but not like Hallmark barf Christmas. Like it's a lot more subtle in terms of just like the set dressing and the time of year and Clint's mission to get home in time for Christmas, which he does. And the fact that he brought Kate and the now renamed pizza dog named Lucky to the farm, I thought was great. And finally, we got to realize what the Rolex was that was stolen and put on the black auction from the Avengers compound. And early on, and I had to look this up because I knew that it was going to have some sort of significance, and I've been tracking it throughout the show, but I didn't realize what it was going to have until the end. And at some point early in the series, Clint says that it's important that he gets it back because it has information that would reveal the identity of someone that's no longer a spy. And you just kind of think like, well, from his background, he knows all kinds of people. It could be anybody, right? But then he brings it back to the farm and he gives it to Laura and his wife, and she flips it over and it's got a shield emblem on the back of it and the number 19. And so it's revealed that she is okay with all this stuff, that Clint's like this superhero spy, because she used to be one. Not a superhero, but she used to be a spy. She was part of S.H.I.E.L.D. And the hint to Agent 19, I'm going to have to look this up because I had to like go Google this. And so apparently in the comics, Clint Barton is married to a character named Mockingbird. Thank you. And so
I looked it up earlier as well.
Yeah. So an Agent 19 was Mockingbird in the comics, but in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show, she's not called Mockingbird, but she has the same human name. She has the same character name. Agent 19 was Barbara Morse, an Avenger called Mockingbird. And in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Bobby Morse, the character played by Adriana Palicki, was the character in the show, but I don't believe they ever called her Mockingbird. Now, Steven, I know that you're a big Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fan. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that at all. I was trying to remember if Mockingbird ever came up, and I don't think it did.
Yeah, so there's just these subtle kind of hints back and forth that Laura in the kind of MCU as we know it is like Laura Barton used to be certainly an agent in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but possibly Mockingbird. They don't really kind of get into it, which I think is great. Like I think it's just a subtle little thing, and I like that those kind of details about Clint and about his kind of slow reveal in the MCU. They always kind of present it in a kind of like a matter of fact way. Like he just kind of comes home to the dinner table and gives her a watch and says, "Look, could you at least take better care of your stuff?" Like it's just, there's nothing more to it than that. And it's the same in Age of Ultron when he brings everybody to the safe house and they're all just kind of like, and even Tony Stark is saying like, she's obviously an agent, right? And he was right. And like these are just
That's
smaller
funny. I
agents.
forgot about that.
Yeah, like these are just smaller agents running around. Like they all are completely bewildered because they had no idea, with the exception of Natasha, that Clint was married. I actually thought for a heartbeat that Clint was going to end up bringing Yelena back to the farm as like a, hey, this is Nat's sister. And so everybody would have been really welcoming. But I guess the fact that she was trying to kill him might have thrown him off that. I don't know. I'm glad it was Kate. I'm glad it was Kate and Lucky. But I thought for a heartbeat there might have been a moment when him and Yelena kind of reached an accord, but that might take longer than we expect. And someone else earlier mentioned that they wanted to know where Yelena was going. I believe that she's at least hinted at being in the next season of Captain America. Moving on into the Internet Minute, which is, of course, brought to you by you. If you'd like to support the Citadel Cafe, you can go to patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe. Surprise. Joining at any level will get you an invite to the member-only Discord server. And, of course, one of those benefits is getting access to bonus episodes. We're currently at 22 patrons as of today. If you'd like to be patron number 23, visit patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe. I do not have a pick this week. I was too busy getting ready for Christmas and the show. But Alastair and James both have come armed and ready to go. Alastair, what is your pick this week?
Mine's Adam Savage's Tested series on YouTube, and specifically his videos all about Ghostbusters Afterlife. I got to see the movie recently. It's absolutely fantastic, and I had no idea that not only is he friends with director Jason Reitman, but he was asked to build a prop for the movie. So not only does he go through building his own cosplay proton pack, you actually get to see him doing on one of his one-day builds this prop for the film, and then he goes to the set, and there's a bunch of videos just of him going through some of the special effects work that they did, a lot of the props that they had, and how a lot of it was still practical effects, even stuff which I didn't even realize were practical effects, and looked really cool. But he is just such a joy to watch with every video he does. And if you're into Ghostbusters, then all the Ghostbusters videos that he's been putting up recently are definitely worth a watch.
James, what is your pick this week?
Well, our talk about suplexes earlier made me want to consider changing my pick and passing along a good suplex video or two. But I'll stick with my original pick. There's a little quick story about it, though. Usually, when I'm on the Citadel Cafe, I'm on with Alastair, and we talk about Alastair's arcade, and Alastair and I usually wind up talking about 2D fighting games. This episode, we got as far as talking about the arcade, but we didn't get to talking about 2D fighting games. So I'm here to keep the streak alive with my Internet Minute pick. 2021 was actually the 30th anniversary of the release of Street Fighter II in the arcades.
No way.
Yeah. And Polygon did this really great series of articles looking at the development history of some of the famous 2D Capcom fighting games. Not just Street Fighter 2, but Street Fighter 1, Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 3, etc. And they're all really well written articles. They have members of the development and marketing teams, both from Japan and stateside. So I'm going to pass along the link to the hub page that Polygon has that links to half a dozen different articles about various different Capcom 2D fighting games that all came out this year. I thought they were great reads, and if you're looking for something to read and you happen to like vintage 2D fighting games, or you're a fan of Street Fighter, I thought they were really great reads.
I can't believe it's been 30 years since that came out. That's bananas.
Yeah, I had to look it up because while we were talking, because I remembered it was some anniversary, and I was trying to figure out which anniversary it was. Like, it's not the 25th anniversary. Street Fighter 2 came out way before that. And then I thought, oh, it can't be 30 years, surely. That's a long time. But no, it is 30 years since Street Fighter 2 first came out in the arcades.
Stuff like this, I always feel better just thinking it's the 10th anniversary. If it's the 10th anniversary of anything, then it's like, that's fine, I feel fine. But the moment we get to 30, it's like, no, that doesn't make sense.
I'm still young.
Yeah. Yeah. This year is the 20th anniversary of the release of The Fellowship of the Ring.
No.
That was great.
Did you see the box set they're doing for like the 20th anniversary of Lord of the Rings? They got like some 20 or 30 disc box set that they're putting out with all, not just the Lord of the Rings, but the Hobbit movies as well, but to celebrate the 20th anniversary. They have this huge box set they're coming out with.
I don't know if I'm into like collecting that kind of physical media anymore. I just, I stream everything.
Yeah.
I say that, and like I had some issues with the quality of streaming Disney Plus with Hawkeye. There were some scenes that I thought were pretty grainy looking, and it's not like it didn't buffer. It's not my internet, but it's doing some sort of compression thing where it's just like, this is not HDR. Like this is not 4K. It doesn't look this like this all the time. And I've had the same with Wheel of Time. That has had some widely spread issues. It's not just me. Amazon servers and stuff have not been taking the load very well, apparently. But in watching Wheel of Time recently, not when it first released, but I've noticed it's been slightly better. So maybe they've improved it. But I find that it can be some strange things where like you're watching low lit shots of people's faces and they look fine, but then the background looks really funny and fuzzy and pixelated and stuff.
Yes, the
but
blacks get kind of crushed.
yeah, but not so much the blacks. I'm talking about everything, even light windows and stuff like that. But then you switch to like an outside scene, and it's beautiful, like, and crisp and really well done. And as long as my TV panel can keep up, which it sometimes can't, it can look absolutely amazing. And you're like, okay, yeah, that's 4K. But I've not had a smooth experience in that light. So maybe I need to look into getting some 4K media. I don't even know. I guess I'm imagining that the Xbox would do it, because my Blu-ray player is not a 4K player. It would only do 1080p. And I don't know, because my physical discs for the Lord of the Rings are the original extended box set, so they would only be 1080p.
Did you get the ones with the models as well, like the Weta?
No,
things that they
no,
have?
it's just a straight up. They look like little books.
Yeah.
They look like books on the
Yeah,
shelf.
yeah. Does the new 10th anniversary set have other stuff, or is it just the discs?
I'm not sure. I think it might have some additional stuff, but I'm not 100% sure.
I'm certainly interested just to see how they've presented it. I think that'll be quite interesting.
I was just going to say quickly, I have historically been someone who likes to collect his favorite things on physical media, but now I'm quickly running out of devices to play that physical media on.
Yeah.
Like the PlayStation 4 is the last device in the living room that is currently hooked up that plays discs, and I'm kind of thinking about one day, hopefully, finding a PlayStation 5. But I want to go discless, so then I'm going to have no device in my living room to play my physical media. So I have to figure out what I'm going to do there. I have to buy a cheap Blu-ray player or something.
I need to work out how to stream 4K and have some decent quality, because I'd like to watch the Star Wars films now that I have a big TV, but I don't want to go find them on any kind of physical media, because I'd have to go find a set. Right now I have some of them, but not obviously the new ones. So yeah, I need to find a solution for that myself. That brings us to the end of the Holiday Roundtable and the end of 2021 for the Citadel Cafe. We will see you all in the new year. You can get more information about the show and links to some of the things that we talked about at thecitadelcafe.com. Music for the show was composed by Kevin MacLeod, and you can email us at thecitadelcafe@gmail.com. And thanks again to LBV for the great email. Find the show by name on Twitter, and of course, subscribe on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify, even YouTube. Wherever you can find a podcast, you can find the Citadel Cafe. And hey, while you're out there, especially over the holidays where you may be getting some new devices and you're hooking them up to the listing platform of choice, not only can you go to the iTunes store and leave the Citadel Cafe a rating and a review, you can now rate podcasts on Spotify, and it's free, and it does a great deal to help us reach the ear holes of new listeners that are looking for nerdy content to listen to, probably on their holiday break. So if you're listening to this, go leave us a review. We would really appreciate it. It helps the show grow a great deal. My name is Joel Duggan. You can find everything I am doing online, including my illustration and design portfolio, at joelduggan.com. You can check out my other podcast all about Minecraft at thespawnchunks.com. We will have another episode of that show going out over the holidays. That was pre-recorded last week. It has a lot of email conversation in it, and that's going to be going out on the 27th. You can follow me at Joel Duggan on social media and Joel Duggan on Twitch, where I hope to stream a little bit over the holiday break. That won't be happening until next week, though. Steven, before we sign out, where can people find you on the internet?
Steven ESC on Twitter and Instagram, but mostly hanging out on Twitch when I can, as twitch.tv/StevenESC.
Alastair, where on the interwebs do you hang your hat?
Over at alastairmcfly.com. I'm also at Alastair McFly on Twitter, and I have a Star Trek podcast called Long Range Sensors, which you can find by adding .com to the end of that as well.
James, I know that you are not on the internet. You do not exist.
Much like the snap in Infinity War, now that we've reached the end of the Holiday Roundtable, I will turn to dust and fade off into the wind once again until next year.
You've been listening to the Citadel Cafe, where we are fast, easy, and cheap, but you can only pick two.